So we're going to call the meeting to order. This is the Kent Landmarks Commission, and we're starting at 5:04. This is a public hearing for the Lunar Rovers Vehicles Community Landmark nomination. And I'd like to just introduce myself really quick. I'm Poppy Handy, and I'm the chair of the commission. And we're actually going to go through everybody and have them introduce themselves. And is the recording? I didn't turn it on. I'm turning the recorder on. Sorry about that. Anyway, I'm the chair of the commission. I'm also an architect and a small business owner in the city of Seattle. I also live in Seattle. And if you want to go ahead and start at the end there, introduce yourself.
My name is Amy Blue. I'm a land use attorney and small business owner in Maple Valley, and I also live in Maple Valley.
Hi, my name is Amber Early. I'm an archaeologist and consultant, and I live in Burien.
I hope, yes. My name is Ella Moore, and I'm with Sammamish Heritage Society, and I live in Issaquah.
My name is Nancy Simpson. I'm the Landmark Commissioner representing the City of Kent, and I live in Kent and work with the Kent Historical Society.
I'm Dave Pilgrim. I'm now retired, but I did run a hardware store. I've been involved in a lot of things over the years, and I did live in Maple Valley also.
I'm Rebecca Osa, and I'm an architect historian, and I live in Seattle.
I'm Crispy Lake. I'm a historian. I live in North Bend.
Thank you. As I said earlier, today we're here to have a public hearing to hear the Lunar Rovers Vehicle Community Landmark nomination, which is very exciting. Prior to doing that, I want to ask if there's anybody on the commission that has any conflict of interest or bias regarding the applications or agenda, and to disclose any ex parte communications or site visits for any of the activities that we have on any of our agendas today, which not only includes the Kent Landmarks Commission, but all of our commissions.
I'm going to recuse myself from the Providence Heights.
Which is the Issaquah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ella. Is there anybody else? Yeah, several of us just went to the Museum of Flight and had a tour there as well. Do we need to say who went there?
Sure.
Let's just raise our hands if we were there, so can see. Okay, so with that, we're going to move right into the public hearing. And Sarah, if you could give us your application report, that would be great.
Just to introduce myself, my name is Sarah Steen, I'm the Landmarks Coordinator for Kent County.
It says no need to lean in, but I don't think that's quite right.
So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the process. Sarah Martin, the author of the nomination, will get more into the details of the Lunar Rovers themselves. A little history of the Kent Historic Preservation Program. It is run as an interlocal agreement with King County since 2007. As Nancy said, Nancy Simpson is our special representative for the city of Kent, and she sits in on any projects we see within that jurisdiction. Right now, Kent has two individual landmarks: the Mill Creek Canyon Earthworks, built in 1982, and the Star Pioneer Cemetery, established in 1873. Kent also has one historic district, the Mill Creek Historic Residential District, built from 1904 to 1962. The Lunar Roving Vehicles would be the first Kent community landmark. Let me explain the difference between that. A community landmark is different than a normal locality landmark, primarily because it doesn't have the regulatory or the incentive attachments to it that other regular landmarks have. There is usually some reason or another that it does not meet the criteria of the properties listed on the landmark register for that locality. In this case, it's mostly because it's not on this planet. And we don't Due to the Outer Space Treaty, there's no way that any jurisdiction can have jurisdiction over something on the moon. But we really wanted to, the people who wrote the nomination and those who are supporting it, wanted to really recognize the connection between Kent and the Rovers, and so they chose to nominate it as a community landmark. This is the code 2062-040 that talks about the designation criteria for designating a community landmark. And it says, historic resource may be designated a community landmark because of its association with significant historical events or historical themes. The process itself, anyone may nominate a historic property. A standard registration form must be completed, and that is true of a regular landmark or a community landmark. Forms are reviewed by the Historic Preservation Officer for completeness. The HPO schedules a public hearing, which is what we're doing right now, to have the commission consider the nomination and take public testimony. If the commission determines that the property meets the designation criteria, they must identify the specific findings that support that designation, so it needs to be on record why it's being designated. And once designated, the findings of fact are issued and reported, and within a limited time period, designation can be appealed. So if someone does not agree with the designation, they can appeal it within a specific time. This is the staff recommendation when it comes to the lunar roving vehicles eligibility. And just as a side note, there are 3 vehicles, but we are nominating them as one community landmark, just as a class. It is eligible under criterion A1. The LRV is the first and only manned lunar space vehicle and will be possible the most ambitious scientific missions of NASA's Apollo moon landings in 1971 and 72. Also, the combined imagination and knowledge invested into the development of the LRV was transferred to solving other technological challenges on Earth. So what was developed there carried on. And Boeing's contract to produce the LRV was largely executed by the company's aerospace division at its Space Center in Kent. So that's the connection with Kent as a Kent community landmark. And I believe that's it. That is the license plate that I found that was I'm going to clear the decks and allow Sarah Martin to come up and talk about the nomination itself.
I should say I tried to secure funding to get to the moon to study that person, but I was unsuccessful.
Wait another 5 years.
I hope so. I hope so.
If you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
So my name is Sarah Martin. I am a preservation consultant in Seattle. I produced this application on behalf of the Kent Downtown Partnership, and I want to thank the KDP and the City of Kent for the opportunity to work on this really exciting project. And I want to thank the army of enthusiastic supporters here to support this effort. The application is part of a broader effort to honor and celebrate Kent's role in the Apollo program, and plans are underway to develop a park with interpretation and an interactive replica rover. So this is just part of that effort. So this landmark application is for the 3 lunar roving vehicles that are currently sitting on the moon. The moon's surface is approximately 239,000 miles away. And as you can see on the map, these are the locations of the 3 rovers. Rovers 1 and 3 are in the northeast quadrant of the visible side of the moon, and Rover 2, Apollo 16, is in the southeast quadrant on the visible side of the moon as well. So this is an unconventional landmark application. However, this type of designation is not entirely unheard of. In 2010, with unanimous votes from their respective commissions, the states of California and New Mexico included in their state registers a group of lunar objects at the Apollo 11 landing site. So we're sort of riding on their coattails, but definitely blazing a trail here in Washington. So the landmark ordinance allows for the designation of many types of historic resources, and buildings are most commonly designated, but sites, objects, structures, and historic districts can also be designated. The rovers are considered structures under the landmark ordinance. Other landmark structures, for your information, include locomotives, railroad cars, bridges, and the like. So this, the landmark ordinance also outlines 5 designation criteria. In this case, we're arguing the rovers are significant under these 2, A1 and A3. A1 for their association with events that are significant to local, state, and national history, and A3 for their significant and distinct design and construction. I think this is outlined in more detail on page 12 of the application or thereabouts. So the application, like typical applications, includes two narratives. The first is sort of a physical description of the rovers in their respective environments. And the second essay tells the history of the rovers as they relate to Kent, Boeing, and NASA. So I kind of want to walk you through some of the highlights of the application and the story of the rovers. The Lunar Rover is history's first and only manned surface vehicle designed to operate on the moon, and it was the crown jewel of NASA's Apollo program. Now, Apollo was NASA's third manned spaceflight program, and its primary objective, as challenged by President Kennedy in 1961, was to land astronauts on the moon and return them safely to the Earth by the end of the decade, which they did 50 years ago last week with the Apollo 11 mission. Following Apollo 11, the mission turned its focus to scientific exploration and discovery. So the purpose of the rovers was very simple. It was to allow the astronauts to travel greater distances on the moon, to collect more samples, and to conduct more scientific experiments. And to achieve this, NASA needed a vehicle that was lightweight, compact, and durable, and Boeing was hired to create it. The result was this four-wheeled vehicle. It had an aluminum frame. It weighed just 460 pounds. It could carry a total payload of nearly 1,100 pounds. It measured just over 10 feet long and 6 feet wide. It was powered by 2 batteries, and it averaged a speed of about 5 miles an hour over the 3 missions. It had a range of 40 to 60 miles, but the astronauts were limited to a range of about 6 miles from home base for safety reasons. What was remarkable to me was how the rover was transported to the moon. The vehicle folds into thirds and was carried to the moon in the storage quadrant of the lunar module. So once on the moon, the astronauts used tethers to kind of manually deploy the rover as a spring-loaded mechanism, and the process took about 15 minutes. They then loaded their gear onto the rover, they put all the communications equipment on it, and they ran a few tests, and they were off to explore. Also remarkable was how quickly Boeing produced the rover. It designed, tested, and built it in just 17 months, and that was about 6 weeks ahead of schedule. They did so in their new $20 million Space Center, which opened in Kent in 1965. Now, Kent was part of a rapidly changing valley. It had long been the center of agriculture here, but post-war annexations and infrastructure projects began attracting industry and commerce, and with it, thousands of residents. And Boeing was leading the way in this effort. One columnist with the Seattle Times called Boeing's move triggered a land-buying stampede, where cabbages once were king, glittering new industrial plants are taking shape. So Boeing was really kind of leading the way. So when it opened, the Space Center was private industry's most advanced space research facility. And it positioned Boeing as a leading competitor for space-related projects for years to come. So within months of the Apollo 11 moonwalk, so 50 years ago in October basically, NASA announced its selection of Boeing for their $19 million rover contract. That contract grew to $38 million over the course of the project. And at Boeing, the project was overseen by Oliver Boileau, who's pictured here, and his Kent-based team in the aerospace division. They also had a team in Huntsville at Marshall Space Flight Center. So the team actually was not new to the whole notion of a lunar rover. Boeing had been working on prototypes for years, and they brought to their project considerable knowledge from previous years of studies. So Boeing designed their first prototype in 1965. It was a mobile laboratory, as you see here, called the MoLab. And it featured a pressurized cabin, and it was 8,000 pounds, which compared with the 460-pound rover is quite different. There were two important carryovers between the two. One was the wired wheels, and the other was the concept of independent electric motor wheels. So Other than that, they're very, very different. So it's kind of fun to see the progression in just a few years in the design. So to find a Kent perspective, which was kind of the most fun, I thought, was to turn to the local newspaper, the Kent News Journal. And it provided a wonderful window into the hometown excitement for the Rover in the early 70s. And the newspaper had, I believe it was a husband-wife team that covered this topic for several years in the paper. And these clippings represent a few things I found. On the left is the mayor of Kent at the time. Her name was Isabel Hogan. She was the first female mayor. And she was particularly interested in the Rovers and used the opportunity to promote her city, as any good mayor would do. So before Apollo 15, she mailed NASA a City of Kent decal, or a bumper sticker, and she requested that it be affixed to the Rover's fender. She was unsuccessful in her first attempt, and she tried again. Again, she was unsuccessful, but perhaps sensing her enthusiasm, Boeing presented the mayor and the city with a plaque recognizing them as the official hometown of the Lunar Roving vehicle. In the middle, you'll see the two photos in the middle represent another source of hometown pride, the Kent JCs. They did a fundraiser selling this souvenir button and was promoting the town as the home of the Rover. The buttons were presented to Boeing officials and anyone else who came to town. The buttons went on sale just in time for the Apollo 15 astronauts to visit Kent after their mission in October 1971. And the paper reported that the buttons were slipped to the astronauts during their visit. And of course, proof that all ages joined in the enthusiasm for the Rover was this local 10-year-old child who proudly manned the tinfoil replica in the Meeker Days parade just before the Apollo 15 launch. So perhaps more than any other Space Center project, the Rover captured the interest and imagination of the Kent community. But what really struck me about the Kent story was that this was happening in the early 1970s as the rising unemployment at Boeing, known as the Boeing bust, had gripped the entire Puget Sound region. So it was also at a time when America's interest was sort of waning when it came to the Apollo program, but the enthusiasm really continued in Kent, and that's really exciting. So how did the Rovers do? Well, the official NASA report concluded that the mission performance of the lunar roving vehicles was excellent. Apollo 15 astronaut David Scott called it a truly remarkable vehicle. Apollo 17 astronaut Harrison Schmitt said the lunar rover proved to be the reliable, safe, and flexible lunar exploration vehicle we expected it to be. Without it, the major scientific discoveries of Apollo 15, 16, and 17 would not have been possible. And to kind of prove his point, here's just a few numbers comparing Apollo 14, which was the final mission without a rover, and comparing it with Apollo 17, the final mission with a rover. And you can see the rover enabled the astronauts to travel much greater distances from home base and gather lots more lunar samples to bring back. So I kind of want to wrap this up and bring it back to our criteria. In terms of its design and construction, the rover was both simple and complex. It was simple in its form and its materials. It was complex in its design. It had 5 major subsystems that were loaded with redundancies to prevent a catastrophic failure. The rover's importance in history is well documented. They made possible the most ambitious scientific explorations of the moon, and we're still gleaning information from these rover-led missions. In terms of their local significance, the interest and pride in the rovers is a uniquely Kent story, and I hope that we're only scratching the surface in collecting these personal stories. All indications suggest the rovers are still right where the astronauts parked them, and with any luck, we'll be back soon to see how they've weathered. And I'll take any questions.
Before we get into deliberations, I want to enter into the record, our office received 20 letters of support for the nomination of the LRV from various community members and professionals. So that is officially entered into the record here.
I don't need to say
I'm not going to read them off.
Anyone who is interested, this is public record now, so I'm happy to share that information.
Thank you. Before we get into public testimony, I'd like to recognize 3 members of the audience. And if you could go ahead and stand when I call your name. These are Lunar Rover vehicle alumni that are in attendance tonight. Charlie Martin with his wife Darlene and their family. Dennis McKillop with his wife Kay, and he also worked on Apollo 2. And Harris Atkins with his wife Mary and family. Thank you so much for your contribution.
My name is Sean Smith, and I'm from Covington, Washington. It is my great honor to provide my support for the designation of the Apollo Lunar Roving vehicles as King County Historic Landmarks. The Apollo moon landings are described by many as humanity's greatest technological achievement. I dropped the technological qualifier and elevated it to one of our greatest achievements ever. Why are the Apollo landings so special? Aside from the obvious engineering and technological feats that had to be overcome, for me, it's the political and societal hurdles that were cleared in order to land 12 humans on the moon that make it so impressive. In a nutshell, the Apollo landings show that when a people have a clear unifying goal or purpose, they can achieve great things. The act of bestowing special recognition upon a place or resource is an act of hope. Because whether we are aware of it or not, this action assumes 2 things. First, it assumes that we are up to the challenge of protecting these resources. And 2, more importantly, it assumes there will be future humans to inherit these resources. It seems in this day and age, we are more divided than ever. We need reminders that it hasn't always been so. Our destiny need not be one of continual division, and that we can pass on a better world to those that come after us. For these reasons alone, this commission should make this designation. I'm getting close to finishing. However, your designation has perhaps an even greater effect. World governments have bestowed historic, cultural, political, and ecological designations upon countless places here on Earth. From Yellowstone National Park to the pyramids of Egypt, humans can confer special designations upon places and artifacts that mark them as exceptional, as something to be protected, something to be passed on to future generations. Just two paragraphs. This designation of the Apollo lunar roving vehicles would add King County's voice to that of other historic commissions in New Mexico and California that recognize humanity's legacy worthy of protection will not be limited to the planet Earth alone. This is a big step, or more precisely, a giant leap in historic preservation. I urge the Commission to designate the Lunar Rover landers as historic landmarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Dave Kaplan.
Good evening. I'm Dave Kaplan. I'm Local Government Relations Manager for the Port of Seattle. And I'm here on behalf of the Seattle Port Commission this evening, strongly supporting designation of the LRVs as community landmarks. As an agency dedicated to the movement of people and products, it's natural that we would be supportive of such an interesting and unique historical mode of transportation, tied to some of humanity's greatest events, and being designated as community landmarks. The fact that the LRVs are on the moon lends to the unique nature of naming them and provides the public intriguing historical community landmarks that we help instill and continue a sense of awe and pride in space and our future in it. With all of that, Port of Seattle commends the LRVs to be listed as community landmarks.
Bart Smith also has a mark in the X, so I wasn't sure if that was a yes or not, so I thought I'd call him.
I'm Barb Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Kent Downtown Partnership. And I should explain, I'm sort of the outgoing. I'm retiring in a few days. So I've been working with Michelle Wilmot on this project for a couple of years. And through that, learned a lot of history about the Apollo missions and the Lunar Rover. And also, we've embarked on a project which you may and may not have heard about. But we wanted to make sure that you understood how the community has gotten behind our efforts at raising money to build a replica of the Lunar Rover, to put it in one of our downtown parks in celebration of the history and the fact that it was built in the Kent Valley. It's important to us because with all the attention that the Apollo anniversary is getting, there's a lot of attention with the Lunar Rover as well. And as we talked to other people, even at our event we had a couple of years ago and we kicked it off, it was amazing to hear how they go, I had no idea. I thought there was one Lunar Rover on the moon. I didn't know it was built in Kent Valley. And the pride that they showed, especially at our dinner auction that night, was very heartwarming. And the other thing I wanted to point out is we're a small nonprofit in downtown Kent, and we celebrate our historic downtown. And the people that were there that night, there were only about 165 people at our dinner auction. And during the evening, we do what we call a fund a meet. So we take a special project that we think means a lot to our downtown. And that particular event, we chose a Lunar Rover replica. And we raised over $12,000 just that night to have this replica built. That tells me that the people that were there were not just Kent residents, but they were business people who don't all live in Kent. So we feel that was a big message to us that this is an important project. Ideas are history, so let's take it a step further. And let's make our Lunar Rovers a landmark on the moon so that we can continue to celebrate the importance of those being built here in Kent. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lisa Polson. I've been a Kent resident since about 1986. Grew up since I was 2 years old in this area. So I am a Boeing retiree. Got my whole career there. So did my dad. I worked at the Space Center for a few years in my career. And mine is more just a personal story that genealogy has become really important to me in the last 10 years or so, and sharing my family history with the upcoming generations. And my daughter and granddaughters were not alive during this time frame. And it was just so exciting for me, even though I wasn't working at Boeing yet when they landed on the moon and then the rovers, and working in the Space Center. And I think it's extremely important to carry on that legacy for future generations so they know what important things happen around them and we're a part of their ancestors' lives. I really support this. Thank you.
Good evening, folks. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is David Ingram. I'm a 34-year retired. I wish I were 34. But in any case, I have the distinction of working with the folks out of Joplin, Missouri, Eagle Pitcher, that also built the batteries. And some of you folks that actually designed the Lunar Rovers know about the batteries, and they were absolutely wonderful batteries. Even the rejects, we use them for bass fishing. Lakes in Joplin, Missouri around. But in any case, my purpose for being here is really to let you know that the Seattle Astronomical Society, of which I'm a VP, and the Boeing Employee Astronomical Society, which I'm the president, and then the Tacoma and the Bellevue East Side and the Everett Astronomical Clubs all do start parties around the Puget Sound area. Just the Seattle Astronomical Society itself does 7 star parties a month. Most of those star parties are at the quarter moon. And guess what our target is? And there's not a single star party that we have among the hundreds of kids and adults. They don't ask, can we see the lunar landing sites? And so we do our best to point our telescopes, feeble as they are, to that area. But now we're going to redouble our efforts, and we're also going to mention that those particular sites And we'll identify, of course, the Lunar Rover sites are sites that are the home to the folks of Kent and for the landmark designation as well. So thank you so much, and I'm wholeheartedly in favor of this from an educational standpoint as well as just a personal entertainment point.
My name is Marcus Shelton, United States Army veteran. Anyway, I just want to let you guys know that I've contacted a gentleman named Mark Armstrong. He's the son of Neil Armstrong. In fact, I think it's very positive that the city of Kent is doing the Apollo 11. I think it's way overdue. Looking forward for America to get their feet back on the ground on the moon again as well. Just to let you know, my dad got a chance to work with this gentleman. He's actually, sure you probably know him.
Oh, great.
So, my dad had the honor to work with President Kennedy. I think it's a very positive thing that the city of Kent is doing this with the Apollo 11, with the anniversary and all that. Just to let you guys know way in advance, I'm working on, it's already been sent to the White House to make NASA Day as a federal holiday. Honor Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. So that's in the works right now. I'm waiting on a reply from the White House right now on that. So just bring a lot of positive spotlight here on the city of Kent. I think it's way overdue, personally. So anyway, I just want to give you advance warning. But like I said, I'm very thrilled and honored that you guys are doing this for a very special occasion for two gentlemen, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm Charlie Martin, and I had the good fortune of working in the 1824 building when they were testing the Lunar Rover. I find it kind of interesting how life works. When I was working at Boeing for the first 25 years in R&D, people would ask me, so what do you do? I said, well, I work at Boeing. Oh, do you work on the 747? I said, no, I work in aerospace. You say, oh, that's nice. and then I was, the last 10 years I was in training, and people would say, where do you work? And I said, well, I work at Boeing. What do you do? I'm in training. And they said, oh, that's nice. 23 years later, I went to a little meeting over here, and all of a sudden, you worked on the Lunar Rovers? I finally figured out how to become kind of famous. But the other two guys here, I like to say that I probably would have my fingerprints on the moon, but keep it clean but kill it back there would make me wear gloves. What have you. So, but I want to put my full support behind this. And I think it's about time, because a lot of people don't realize how much work was done here in Kent by not just Kent people, but people in all the communities around us. And so I hope everything works well. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm really disappointed that I have to follow that because I'm not as funny as him. I want to thank you all for having us here tonight to talk about this really important, potentially historic decision you're going to be making. My name is Kelly Maloney. I'm the president and CEO of the Aerospace Futures Alliance and the Washington State Space Coalition. Those are two leading aerospace associations in the state of Washington. With us tonight is also Erin Herringshaw, who is our Director of Strategic Engagement. AFA, and we call it the Washington State Space Coalition, WISC. We represent approximately 1,450 aerospace and related businesses in the state of Washington, and that includes commercial and defense, aviation, space, and unmanned aerial systems, among other types of vehicles and airborne machines. We're here to urge your support of this, of designating the Apollo lunar roving vehicles on the moon as historic landmarks. It is our belief that this designation is fitting for many reasons that you've already heard, and I'm sure some that you'll still hear. But we further believe that this designation can showcase to the world that Washington State, and specifically the City of Kent and the Kent Industrial Valley, were early pioneers in space. And in turn, it could position us as the current day drivers of this amazing technological, scientific, and earth-defying sector. With more than a century of aerospace deeply rooted in Washington, from Boeing and its supply chain to the intersection with space interests for more than 60 years, the Kent-based Space Center was ground zero for design, testing, and production of the Apollo 15, 16, and 17 lunar rovers that are still on the moon to this day. Given this rich history and the history yet to be made in Washington and Kent, the Aerospace Futures Alliance and the Washington State Space Coalition support designating the Apollo lunar rovers as historic landmarks and appreciate your consideration for the same. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to first start by acknowledging the traditional lands of the Snoqualmie, Snohomish, and White River Native American communities. My name is Juan Carlos Chavez. I am a resident of Auburn, Washington, but I work at the University of Washington for two NASA-funded programs, the Northwest Earth and Space Sciences Pipeline and Washington NASA Space Grant Consortium. These are programs that are developed to essentially support the education of the next generation of STEM workers, science, technology, engineering, and math. So this designation provides a context for future innovation and future desire and curiosity of the STEM fields to produce the next generation of technologies that we will all benefit from. Everything from health sciences to vehicles to airplanes to rockets to all of these things that are available to our kids who sometimes do not see themselves in these fields developing these things, where someday their products, their actual innovation will be designated as a landmark. So I stand here before you all truly supporting this as one way to motivate the next generation and the next diverse generation of workers who all can benefit from this opportunity to look back and look forward and be present. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you so much for making the trip down to Kent today. My name is Dana Ralph, and I am the mayor of Kent. And as you heard earlier, any good mayor would want to capitalize on the amazing things that are happening in our city. I had some prepared comments, but given what our speakers have said, I want to talk about the people side of this. Landmarking the Lunar Rovers serves to recognize the hundreds of Boeing employees and other companies that contributed to this amazing engineering feat. We went to the moon and we drove a vehicle, 3 of them, on the moon. That is a pretty incredible thing. It's an amazing part of our history that unfortunately a lot of people don't know. You've heard it said, go out, we're talking in the community. We have a Trader Joe's on top of the hill and they have murals of all the things that are Kent up there, and I was talking to the manager and he says, I don't understand why that Lunar Rover's up there. It's painted in the store. It's because it was made here in Kent. This landmark will give us an opportunity to tell that story, but it also gives us an opportunity to inspire the next generation. You heard about some of the programs that are happening in cooperation between the University of Washington and NASA. When we were at the Museum of Flight today, I ran into a lady from Boeing. She walked up and introduced herself, and she told me about the program that happened this summer with kids and the challenges that NASA put forward. They had to work with Mindstorm Legos and different projects. And in her voice, in her explanation, she had her young son standing next to her, and they had volunteered at this. The excitement about the future and the inspiration we can provide to our kids, our very diverse population, it's amazing. And this landmark designation gives us a solid, this makes it very real, right? It gives us something to talk about as a community, something to come together around to celebrate not only our past, but the amazing future that we have here in the Valley. Space is in Kent, it's here to stay in Kent. from Boeing all the way to Blue Origin. We are so proud of that legacy, and being able to celebrate with a landmark would be amazing. So thank you for your consideration on this. Thank you to King County staff, Kent Downtown Partnership, Michelle Wilmot, everybody that's worked on this. And I could go on and on with the list of thank yous, but please consider this, and we're hoping that we get to have a celebration in a little while. So thank you very much.
So I'm Mike Lombardi. I'm the corporate historian for the Boeing Company and a proud member of this community. And I want to thank you, Mayor Ralph, for doing this. And Michelle, thank you, and the whole team here in Kent. This is wonderful. It means so much to me that we're preserving this piece of history, Boeing history, that I'm very proud of as a Boeing employee, but also as a member of this community, I'm very proud that this is a part of our history. But this isn't just about history. This is our identity in Kent. This is who we are. We are an innovative, high-tech community. And it's also about our future. This is our future, and the mayor stated that with Boeing and Blue Origin, this is the future. In 10 years, we're going to be a spacefaring race. Humanity is on the cusp of becoming a spacefaring race. We're going to have people working and visiting space because of Boeing, the work at Boeing and at Blue Origin. This is happening. And this community should be recognized around the world as a center for that. That's our future. That's our destiny. And this is a pointer. The Lunar Rover and the work that was done by Boeing is a direction for us, pointing toward our future. Now, as a youngster in grade school in this community, I watched Apollo, but it was more real for me because my neighbors went down the hill to the Space Center and worked on this. And it inspired me to pursue a job in this industry. Like a lot of other kids, I want to be an astronaut. That didn't happen. It didn't happen. But it inspired me to get a career in the aerospace industry. And that's what I want for the current generation in this community and future generations, is to have that inspiration to pursue that same career. Let's help those youngsters to find their own great dreams and make those dreams into reality. Thank you for considering.
Hi, my name is Alexia Gorsh. I'm a Kent resident. I work in Kent. I actually work at a civil engineering firm. And when everybody was talking, I started immediately thinking about STEM in the future. And that is touted so much right now. But I think for a lot of students, particularly in our area, that's kind of an abstract idea. They don't really know what that means. They don't know how to acquire that education. They don't know how they would apply it. Would it require going to school across the country, for instance? I am also I'm on 2 advisory committees for the Kent School District currently. And as part of that, there's ongoing conversation about how best to prepare students. There's an element that includes what options exist post-high school. There are elements about what fields they could explore. And to think that we have this right here. I mean, I think of students like at Kent Meridian High School could literally go down the street and witness history in a way. I think that is an incredible teaching tool. I realize that to today's generation that probably doesn't look like much, but for them to learn that that was an engineering marvel and they could be responsible for the next engineering marvel, that could go a really long way.
With that, we'll close the public comment period, and we're going to move on to deliberations. We need to have our next one on deliberating.
Who wants to start?
Who wants to start?
I'll start. If you folks don't know, the document that was given to us was 74 pages in length. So it actually was a very informative document to read, and really I learned a lot out of it that I did not know. So I thank you for putting such a good document together. As far as the criteria, we're looking at criteria in A1 and A3. I fully support both of those. The process for recognizing how much Kent supported this and came from Kent is really recognized. And I really thank everybody that was involved. I didn't realize that how many people were actually involved in this whole process. It was astronomical, to be honest with you. So I'm fully in support.
I was not even aware of this, and I couldn't put the connection together, but I think it's really outstanding, and I think the application is superb, so thank you, Sarah.
Would anybody else like to comment on any of the criteria, or just general comments are fine, or questions?
I just wanted to add one comment to it. I appreciated Sean, I think, who talked about recognizing humanity's legacy, and somebody else said the same word about legacy, and I think that's a wonderful term for what we're doing here. I totally support the nomination. I think it fits within the criteria and the categorization as a community landmark. So thank you for KDP for bringing that forward, and I'm in support of it.
And I concur that it meets exceptionally with criterion 1 and 3.
And I support fellow commissioners' comments too. Fully in support of the criteria A1 and A3, and an excellent written nomination. So thank you for that.
Great. So it sounds like the commission is in agreement, and we don't have any other questions. So do I have somebody to call the motion?
I move to designate the 3 Lunar Rovers as the City of Kent Communities landmarks under criteria A1. The Lunar Rover, our history's first and the only manned lunar surface vehicles. The imagination and knowledge that resulted in the Lunar Rovers was transferred to solving other technological challenges on Earth. Boeing contract to produce the Lunar Rovers was largely executed by the company's aerospace division at its Space Center in Kent. The rovers also meet the City of Kent's criteria A3 through their distinct design and construction.
I'll second the motion.
Oh, I just wanted to add that it also meets criterion A1 to the motion.
That's what you said.
Oh, you did say, okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, then I'll second the motion.
So then I want to also invite anybody that wants to discuss the motion or make any changes. If we're all in agreement, then we can go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Great, it passes.
I'd like to make a comment on what has just transpired here. Working with our Kent Museum for, a number of years, nearly 10 years, and we've had exhibits about the Lunar Rover several years ago. We have an exhibit today in our living room at the museum. And again, we are constantly having visitors come in, school children, young children from wherever, and we ask them, do you know what this object is here? Do you know what these pictures represent? And unfortunately, a lot of the adults, they have no idea that what transpired here in Kent, where these Lunar Rovers were built. And And kids today need to know that, and we always really challenge them when they come in that this is something that happened in your community. It didn't happen anyplace else in the world. It happened here. So this is something to be very proud of, and I'm glad that what the museum's doing in these efforts. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to comment? Please come forward and go ahead and state your name again one more time for the record.
Dana Ralph, Mayor of Kent. Thank you for letting me come back one more time. Thank you. I cannot tell you how exciting this is for our city, for everybody involved, the celebration of this history and the work that you all have done to make this a possibility. One thing that did not get mentioned is today is the eve of the 48th anniversary of the launch of Apollo 15. So this could not be a more fitting day for this to happen. Tomorrow is the birthday. So we're so excited about that. And I do want to let everyone know that we're going to have a celebration reception in the lobby, and you're all welcome to join us. Thank you again so very much. And thank you everyone that is here that made this a reality. This is a team effort, and we are so grateful. So thank you.
Thank you. Else who would like to make a comment before I close the public comment period again? All right, we're gonna go ahead and close. Before we adjourn, I just want to actually just recognize all the hard work that went into this and actually thank everybody that was involved on behalf of the commission. It's times like these that that's why we're here. So I just wanted to really say thank you, and we're very excited to have